Alright, good evening y'all. Josh here, instructor from the table. Good to see you. Why are we here? We're going to do a little bit of a demo of a simple cherry tomato pan sauce, and that's going to get served with locally made Pastifico pasta. So just to let you know, I do have some notes here, just so I can try to stay on task, and that even for myself, I want to be prepared for you all. First thing, sanitation and safety. Well, pardon me. So the name that we could give this is rustic cherry tomato pasta. All right. Just made that up. It's going to be fairly rustic. It would be considered a pan sauce, in my opinion. And this sauce specifically, without the pasta, can be served with any and most grains, proteins, maybe a oilier, fatty fish if you're looking at seafood. Definitely shrimp, salmon for sure. And for that part, like halibut even comes to mind, Chilean sea bass, Mr. John Link was talking about the other day, something that he made at home. And the overall goal is to just cook, explore taste, and to have fun, okay? So safety and sanitation, overall you can see the station is set up. We want an organized station before we start. In the industry that would be called mise en place, so everything is in its place. You can see overall, just take a look at it. While you're looking at it, I'm going to wash my hands really quick. And before I start it, again, everything washed, sanitized, clean. I have a sanitation bucket here. You don't specifically have to do this at home, but this is very industry standard. And from the health department, that always belongs on the floor, just in case of any sort of like spill or cross-contamination that could happen if a majority of that liquid spilled into food, right? So colander's gonna go in the sink after I wash my hands. Please maybe zoom in if you can. If you can't, just take a look at what we have here. Soap. Nice and lathered. And in future videos, I'm just going to start with clean hands. And honestly, they were clean. I'm just doing it for y'all to show good measure. Colander, a piece of equipment that you'll use to strain the pasta. This is a chinois or a china cap that you could use also. This will work a little bit better. And you won't need two hands, or you only need two hands to strain it. And just, you want to reserve some of that water. So we're gonna, we'll state that a little bit later, but that's kind of a Italian grandma trick for pan sauces, specifically, or any kind of pasta. The colander will just go in the sink to have that ready. And yeah, station, clean, organized, mise en place. And then now equipment really quick. We have a pot of boiling water that's been salted. As heavy as a boil as you can get, because we're going to be adding room temperature pasta to it, and it'll bring down the temperature of the water. Chef's knife of some sort, okay? You could even use a utility knife, which I won't be, but this is a decent knife. It's just not the best to be, let's say, chopping garlic or something. It's something that we'll use in class, yet we're gonna go with our chef's knife. And utensils. Now I've got a bunch of culinary utensils in here overall, but if I was going to an offsite, or if I was going into a professional kitchen, or even if I was cooking at home, I have something just like this. It's got a whole bunch of different gadgets in it that I like to use in plating, and that might be necessary for any sort of kind of culinary need in the kitchen. We have cutting board, 2 sources of heat. Here we have induction, stovetop more or less. Gas or electric, doesn't really matter. If you are in using induction, the main thing is that you need cast iron or stainless steel for it to conduct. Aluminum does not work. And the straighter the colander, okay? From there, we've got our ingredients. We have a few extra ingredients also, just to kind of show the awesomeness of food and color. But overall, we're going to have a pint to 2 cups of cherry tomatoes, about a cup of raw basil that we're going to cut and chiffonade later, a medium-sized red onion, or this is tropea, which is an Italian heirloom that kind of has a little bit of a sweet heat to it, so it's going to add a little dimension to the dish. 3 garlic cloves, and then we're going to pick some of these herbs, which are oregano, za'atar, and thyme. We're going to mix all those together, and then we're going to put a couple bay leaves in while we are simmering the sauce. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to start, because this pasta, per the manufacturer, the local pasta shop, they recommend 12 minutes. So we're going to set a timer for 12 minutes, and around the time that this is done, you should be done with the sauce, okay? So all in all, I think with setup and some solid mise en place, when you're a beginner, maybe a half hour. If you cook a lot at home, you can just leave your station set up like this, kind of as you see in class a lot. It's just a station, it's set up, it's ready to go. So pot is boiling, steam is coming up from the top. We have, this is a little kosher salt. You don't want to use an expensive salt for salting water, because it's just not healthy business minded, although you could if that's all you had. And then what you could do easily, and would recommend it also, is to taste your water to make sure that it's, let's say, salty enough. Now, that being said, your salt, your pasta will absorb that salt. So try not to over season your pan sauce. We're just going to dump that in and just forget about it. I had not turned on my heat yet for my pan. I think I will do that now. And high heat is always the best to start. You can always turn it down, regulate your heat, and we might do that during this video, or we might not. It just depends on the quickness of how everything's cooking. Honestly, cooking is done by feel, monumentally, and using all 5 senses. I didn't actually talk about this, and I apologize, but this is our compost bucket. You could even have a separate scrap bucket for stocks. Very, very kind of industry standard, if you will. This onion looked good right off the bat, yet the onion is a little bit tough from the curing that was happening. So simply enough, I'm just going to peel this off. Might be a little come off in chunks, but no big deal. Take that outer skin off. Again, it's going to be kind of rubbery and it's not really going to cook. The moisture has been released from it. There might be a certain section that feels good. We usually just compost that. So we have our onion here. One thing that you'll always see with me cooking is my knives are always facing away, never towards. Huge safety. We can go into a little bit of knife safety here, but we'll go over more in class also. When in doubt, just take your time. The sharper your knives are, the better they'll cut, and you shouldn't cut yourself as you would with a dull knife per se. And understand that just to be in the moment. Especially when you're young working with a knife, you're not going to be talking with a friend per se. Just be focused, okay? So with this onion, I cut off the sides, pardon me. I peeled it. I'm always going to want to flip it on the flat side. Anything we're cutting, peeling, if it's round, it's going to be much harder to cut. Now, that'll happen, let's say if you're dicing a shallot. Yet if you can, flip it on its side. You're gonna have much more control that way. And we're gonna start with onions and a little bit of olive oil. So I've got some olive oil here. Simple, this is what you would have to purchase. If you need some, we have some here in class. But if you have the means to grab some, you can. Now that smokiness is good overall, but we're going to want to add our onions in super quick, right? Just to bring down that temperature. Whenever you're adding any ingredients in, just be sure that you move your hand away from the heat. We always have a towel, dry towel, and I'm just going to shake this up just to cool down the pan a little bit and even out some of the heat. If these onions brown a little bit, that's all right. They're caramelizing. So my hand is like a claw. Again, we'll go over this a little bit more in class. I'm always going to clean my knife after I'm done slicing. Clean cutting board. And from the sound of this and the onions, what I'm going to do is actually add a little bit more olive oil. So again, I'm using my ears mainly to the sound. Of the pan. So a solid spoon, not like a complete spoon, not a slotted spoon. Pardon me. I'm just going to break up this onion a little bit, okay? Spread it out in the pan, evenly cooking. At that moment in time, I think I'm just going to turn it down just a skosh to like 3/4 heat so I can chop this garlic up. And then all we're doing with the garlic is we're going to leave it big. I'm a huge garlic fan, so if you aren't a huge garlic fan, you could use less. If you're even more of a garlic fan than I am, you could use more. Turn it down a skosh more. So with this garlic, choose the flat side, obviously, again, just like that onion, but I didn't cut the garlic. If you want to cut the garlic in half, but I did that with the first one, it was a big clove. But cutting the garlic in half and you can flip it down, that way you can have that flat side and that kind of safety net with your hands, your guide hand that you're using. So I'm actually just going to set this aside. Turn it down a little bit more, and you could have had these tomatoes already pre-halved, and honestly, I would do that too. I'm just showing you kind of technique on how to cut these tomatoes, and you want your 2 fingers kind of on the outside and just slice down in the middle. Similar to if you were using this Perry knife, it's even kind of easier if you will, but we'll just use that one knife for now. Everything goes back in the same spot, okay? That way, if things get weird, everything's in its place. We have some nice caramelization on these onions. You don't need to caramelize them. You can caramelize them. It's all up to you, and have fun. I'm going to turn that off. So I do recommend having these already cut. Though still probably not going to take 12 minutes to get all this done. Maybe it will. This is our first video. Our first jump into more technology. But look at all this color that we're using. Again, we have Black Maori. That's Black Maori. This is Sakura, the red one. The orange one is called Torangina. And the green is Sun Green. So, have all those sliced. Just use our little fancy spoon right here. So here are the onions. We've got a little bit of sweetness going on with that kind of half caramelization that's happening. And we can add our garlic. I had turned the heat off. Now we're gonna go all the way up again. High heat. We will have a little bit of time to siphon out the basil, and we're gonna pick some herbs real quick. Matter of fact, we can throw some bay leaf in right now, which is kind of fun. These aren't edible, obviously, so you're gonna have to pull them out, but they're fun for flavor. We grow them here, so if we have it and it's gonna add flavor, then why not use it? We're gonna stir our pasta right now to pick it up off the bottom. And we probably could have given that a stir right when we got it in. So stirring the pasta when you get it in, definitely good practice. And this is basically like I'm cooking at home or cooking on a line. So understand if you want to pick up your tomatoes or put them in a container and then throw them in, that's fine. I'm going to kind of do a very quick toss in the pan. And we're just going to let that go. On high heat. We want some color. And Again, this is the first time that I've probably done anything like this. I would say on a video. So we're going to hope for the best results we can get and guarantee it's going to taste good because the product's fresh. And yeah, fresh product, local product, amazing flavor. This is a little too much basil, quite honestly. So visually, as I was cutting it, let's say it's like a half cup basil. You can always add more or less, however you see fit. Just going to sanitize the board up a little bit. From that tomato juice. There is no worry for cross-contamination right now because I'm just using vegetables, so don't worry about that. So that's actually the pasta. So we're just going to take a look and see what it's like. And if it gets done before your pan sauce, that's plenty fine. So this is a zucca pasta. So I'm just going to let it cool a little bit so I don't specifically burn my mouth. Hot, for sure. I'm just going to pick a couple leaves. So right now, I would consider it a little pre-al dente. Al dente means like crunchy to the soup, which is a term used with vegetables a lot, and pasta. So probably just maybe another minute. And the water on this isn't boiling as rapid as maybe what it would at home because it is an induction burner. So again, we want to use our senses to really have a feel of what's going on with our food. And I'm just going to pick some za'atar, some oregano. You can see these stems left over. There's a little bit of flour there. I'm not worried about that. I'll just compost it. You can use it. We give our pan sauce a little flip. And we definitely have some color. Okay? And that's a good thing. I can tell that we need a little bit more oil because the pan is dry. So don't be afraid to add more olive oil. That's a portion of the base of the sauce also. So we're going to cook these down, so don't feel like you're going to overuse it. Olive oil is a great addition to any pasta for that matter, and I think we'll probably put a little bit over the top when we garnish it. This is some thyme, so I'm just cleaning the leaves off the small little sprigs of thyme. And this is just going to be adding more flavor. I'm going to turn that down a little bit now that we've got some color on it. Even to the point where I probably could have stirred it maybe once prior to when I initially stirred it. But we don't need to stir it a lot. I think that's the main thing that I would like to put out there. Right now, the tomatoes are breaking down with the heat, so they're releasing their juices, which is going to help make the sauce. Pasta's done. We'll pull that off. 2 towels. Over into the colander. And I literally consider that a shut that off. Turn down the heat just a skosh more. So we have a little bit of liquid left in here. We didn't pour it all out. I was really close to pouring it all out though, so I apologize about that. Normally in a kitchen you just have a pot of boiling water that you would throw like a strainer in, and you always have pasta water. So that's fine. Again, stems. Here's the pan sauce without the pasta and without the pasta water in it. Okay. Put that back on the heat. We're just really quick going to chop up these harder herbs. And you don't have to put these herbs in, but it's definitely going to add to the flavor. And take your time. Easily shut off the heat. The pasta would probably be the only thing that you want to make sure it doesn't really kind of overcook, if you will. And if it does, it's still edible, unless you just boil it until it disappears in the pan. That's pretty solid. The salt came through a fair amount. Right now, actually, I'll season the sauce, salt and pepper, and you can just use ground salt, ground pepper, or just table salt. I'm going to throw my herbs in. Basil. This is fun. So, pasta. And that was 3 cups of pasta, so it was pretty much half that bag. And overall, looks like a really great amount, honestly. So we'll toss, okay? You can easily just use a spoon and stir. And again, you know, I've watched Food Network a lot, especially more when I was young. And no lie, they're like, man, I wish you could be here to smell and taste this. So that's very real. And I'm just going to take a little bit of the pasta water just to add a skosh more liquid to kind of release more flavors. As a matter of fact, I can deglaze the pan also a little bit. Did not add vinegar, which shouldn't be an issue. You could put lemon juice on this. You could put a little bit of vinegar. We're going to taste it, see what the acidity is like. Acid in food is huge, right? But the tomatoes have a fair amount of acidity going on. So we want to taste the sauce. I think we could use a little bit more salt. And this is going to salt everything along with the sauce. So next we'll taste everything together. Again, season to taste is a very real thing. It's not just a season to think it's seasoned. We want to taste all the ingredients in the pasta. So I'm gonna try a little piece of pasta now. Try a little bit of everything. Sorry, I double dipped, my bad. Pretty spot on. So there's bay leaf in there. At home, you could just plate it. If this was something maybe in the restaurant, I would make sure I don't get any bay leaves in it. But it can just be really simple. And again, we'll just make sure the bay leaf stays in the pan. We probably could have put more onion in it, quite honestly. But the sauce is coating the spoon, even just a little bit. We could add more pasta water. If we were gonna reheat this, we could reheat it with a little bit more pasta water or just plain water. We could garnish with a little bit of fresh olive oil. And then we've got this fancy purple ruffle basil here. And we can just throw that on top. So, this would be your end result. Like so. Have some fun. Thanks for tuning in. See ya.